Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Legacy Shared, celebrating Julius Rosenwald's gift to America. Today, we honor a visionary philanthropist whose belief in education and equality helped shape the moral fabric of our country. My name is Arthur Masarjan, and I serve as Deputy Director of the Jewish American Hall of Fame, a division of the American Jewish Historical Society, which is hosting today's program in partnership with the Combat Antisemitism Movement, or CAM. I also lead civic and philanthropic partnerships in Boston's Jewish community, where our mission, much like Mel Wacks' vision for the Hall of Fame, is to elevate stories of leadership and conscience that strengthen the American Jewish experience. We gather at a time of growing division and rising anti-Semitism across the United States, from all sides of the political and social spectrum. The headlines can feel dark and disheartening, and oftentimes we feel like anti-Semitism and hate are entering ever new spheres of life, which we didn't expect before. Yet in moments like these, history points us towards hope. Julius Rosenwald's story reminds us that partnership is not only possible, but essential. His friendship with Booker T. Washington and their shared commitment to education, opportunity, and justice helped transform the American South, and in many ways, our democracy itself. Just this past week at the Blue Square Alliance Against Hate convening at Gillette Stadium, where I was honored to participate, CNN commentator Van Jones reminded us that it was the Black-Jewish relationship that helped bring out the promise of American democracy. That partnership, grounded in shared struggle and moral courage, gave birth to some of the most transformative moments in the civil rights movement. Now, in this generation, we have the chance and the responsibility to renew that spirit, to rebuild the bridges that others have tried to tear down, to model what genuine allyship looks like for the rest of our country. Because the Black and Jewish communities together have so much to teach America about empathy, perseverance, and the pursuit of justice. Founded in 1969, the Jewish American Hall of Fame has honored men and women whose lives embody the values of service, innovation, and integrity. Its plaques are permanently displayed at the Virginia Holocaust Museum, and its medal series is one of the longest running in U.S. history. This year, we induct Julius Rosenwald, the legendary president of Sears Roebuck, and a humanitarian who, in partnership with Booker T. Washington, funded more than 5,000 schools for African American children across the South. Rosenwald believed that most people don't need charity, they need a chance. And his legacy reminds us that the greatest acts of philanthropy build dignity and opportunity, not dependence. To begin our ceremony, it's my honor to introduce the founding director of the Jewish American Hall of Fame and my cousin, Mel Wacks, whose creativity and devotion have sustained this institution for over 5 decades. Mel, the screen is yours.
Hi, it's very exciting to be here with all of these wonderful spokespersons. Let me give you a little information about the Jewish American Hall of Fame. It's on the PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It was founded actually in 1968 as part of the Magnes Museum in Berkeley, California, with Seymour Fromer was the director, and he inspired and worked with me. In 1997, those are the early days of the internet, we put up a website. And when the Magnes Museum changed form and joined with Berkeley, the Jewish American Hall of Fame looked for another parent and founded at the American Jewish Historical Society, thanks to the late Michael Feldberg. And in 2010, we found a home for our plaques. We have over 50 plaques, and they're at the Virginia Holocaust Museum. And thanks to Jay Ibsen. In 2021, we did a major changes to the website. And I want to thank Arthur and Landon who are helping me today. Now, and thank you to all the speakers. This is the medal. I think it's quite a handsome one too. And I'll talk more about that in a few moments. And if anybody's interested, please visit the Hall of Fame's website, amuseum.org. And you want to contact me for information about the medal or anything else, it's director, JAHF, at yahoo.com. Thank you. Arthur?
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for your vision and the extraordinary artistry that continues to define the Jewish American Hall of Fame. Also wanted to make mention, since we have a few folks from DC on our panel today, that one of the plaques can be viewed at the National Museum of American Jewish Military History, which is just in DuPont Circle, and is associated with the Jewish war veterans of the USA. And they have a nice exhibit there, and they spotlight the medal for Asher Levy, who was involved in the Revolutionary War, if anyone is in the DC area and would like to take a look as well.
And right now at the National Buildings Museum, they're having an exhibit about Julius Rosenwald, and two of our medals are on display there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mel. Our next speaker is Sam Asher, the Executive Director of the Virginia Holocaust Museum in Richmond, home to the Jewish American Hall of Fame exhibit and plaques. Sam has been an invaluable partner in ensuring that these stories of Jewish and American achievement remain accessible to all. Sam, welcome.
How is everyone today? I'm very proud to be able to speak on behalf of the Virginia Holocaust Museum. We're so proud to host the medals and the exhibit. It's an incredible part of our museum. The exhibit contains 50 plaques or more, actually, of Jewish American men and women who've been inducted into the Hall of Fame since 1969. These are plaques created by outstanding sculptors, and the medals are created over the sculpture and then hung in the museum. The stories of these very famous people are so important for us to remember, for the students that come to our museum to see, and over 5,000 students come on field trips to our museum, and we have over 40,000 visitors to the museum, and everyone is encouraged each year, and they're all encouraged to see this exhibit. And their stories, as you all know, are very, very famous people in their fields, such as Albert Einstein, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Golda Meir, Elie Wiesel, George Gershwin, Jonas Salk, Barbara Streisand, and many, many others. And there are, of course, even some sports figures, and we'd like to have more sports figures, and Mel and I talk about this, Hank Greenberg and Barney Ross. We're just really excited to have it, and excited also that this year Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington are honored on a medal, and we're very happy to be part of this induction ceremony. It's absolutely one of the best things we can be doing. Our Virginia Museum for History and Culture in Richmond had a huge exhibit about Julius Rosenwald and the schools. And I think this is just another step in the right direction. And we're very happy to be hosting this this exhibit and this medal that will be hung, that is actually already hanging in the museum. So we give a lot of credit to Mel and everyone who's been involved in this. It's the 250 year, is coming up, that celebration. And we're going to be inviting people through our social media to come to see the Jewish American Hall of Fame, because nothing could speak more proudly of our work and what we do to build America than the Jewish American Hall of Fame in the 250th year. So Mel, again, thank you for all of your hard work. we're super happy to host. Tell everybody to come to Richmond, Virginia, to Shockoe Bottom, 2000 East Cary. We really want more and more visitors because it's such a beautiful project and it's so important to tell our story. So thank you very much. I'm very glad to be on this Zoom call and very glad to be able to host this fantastic exhibit. And thank you all very much for everything you do.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's really wonderful to have you join us and for you to host the exhibit at the Virginia Holocaust Museum, which, at first glance, it's a Holocaust museum. So why do we highlight Jewish Americans? And I think when we think about combating anti-Semitism today, one of the most important things we can do is to educate about the Jewish American experience. And so it's so important to bring those two histories together. And I think, Richmond in particular has really been a leader in that. We've worked in the past with Mayor LeVar Stoney, who has celebrated Jewish American Heritage Month in the city of Richmond through the library system and other avenues. And so it's really just so exciting and so great to see you continue that work through the museum in Richmond. So thank you so much, Sam.
Absolutely.
Now I'd like to turn it back to Mel Wacks. We'll share a special presentation prepared by Eugene Daub, the sculptor of this year's medal and many of the prior medals through the Hall of Fame as well. Eugene's an acclaimed sculptor, and he was unable to join us live today, but he prepared a visual presentation detailing his design process and the symbolism behind the Rosenwald Washington medal, and Mel will walk us through the PowerPoint on Eugene's behalf.
No, the other one. Okay, thank you so much. And Sam, thank you so much for your kind words. Your support is greatly appreciated. Okay. Okay, Eugene unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but he did prepare a PowerPoint for me. Here he is alongside a statue of Rosa Parks in the National Statuary Hall in the United States Capitol, which was unveiled by President Obama a couple of years ago. Eugene is really one of the leading sculptors in the country, and his works are in San Francisco, St. Louis, etc. He is also, we're very fortunate, this is the 18th medal for the Jewish American Hall of Fame that he has designed. And 18, of course, in Judaism stands for life and good luck. And I thank Eugene for his hard work and for putting up with all of my mishigas. Okay, and here's, I'm going to show you how this plaque and medal were made for Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington. Let's see, can we get rid of this? I don't want. Thank you. Thank you, Landon. That's why you're here. Okay, now we have a full screen of Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington, which is really an amazing and inspiring story that you'll hear more about during the program. And I'll give you, this gives you some insight on the background of the creation of the medal. So the Eugene originally sent me 3 sketches, and like I often do, I rejected all of them. I didn't like the extra words around it, and I wanted their names and dates to be more prominent. So here is the final sketch that Eugene made. After the sketch, he works in clay, and when the clay models are finished, he casts them in plaster of Paris. And here is the plaster of Paris model. This is about 10 inches in diameter. And using that plaque, we actually, Jim LeCaretz makes a 3D printing and creates this plaque. And this is the plaque mounted on wood that's in the Virginia Holocaust Museum. Now, here's one of the chairs in Rosenwald School. And this is going to be a star attraction on the reverse of the medal. These are the models and plans for one of the schools in Macon, Alabama. And this is the first sketch that Eugene sent to me for the reverse. It's quite nice, but I asked for two things. I asked that a boy be added to the girl, and I asked him to change. It's very tricky to learn exactly how many schools were made. There are all kinds of numbers tossed around on the internet. And on the medal, originally, Eugene said 5,300. Later, he changed it to over 5,000. And here's the sketches with the boy added. And here's the plaster. How can we pull it down? Oh, whoops. Okay, well, that's okay. That was the plaster, and here's the final medal. And I did some research, and I decided that the number was 4,978, and I hope that's correct. The larger numbers are due to the fact that in addition to schools, other buildings were built in the program for residents and for study. Now, this is the final medal, is actually about 3.5 inches in diameter. And no more than 100 medals will be made. Whoops, I think I missed some. Let's see. Oh, I guess that's right. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Well, that tells you the story. And actually, we pay for all of our programs, and we have raised over $300,000 over the 50 years for the American Jewish Historical Society, the Magnes Museum, and other nonprofits. So we're very fortunate that we haven't had to ask for outside funding. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all again for being here.
Thank you so much, Mel. Actually, I have a question for you before moving on. If you could just for a moment speak a little bit about why the medals, a little bit about your background and the symbolism and significance of the coins and the medals, and why you first developed that concept as part of the numismatic tradition.
Sure. Well, since I was 10, since my father gave me a little packet of old coins when I was 10 years old, I was a coin collector. And I became a member of when the Israel Coin Club of New York formed, I became a member of that. And I also became a founding member of the American Israel Numismatic Association. So that was all in New York. When I came out to California as a field engineer on the SR-71 plane, spy plane, I felt sort of alone, and I came up with a project actually to make medals. And I did that when in association with the Magnes Museum. Seymour Fromer was an inspiring figure and worked with me. And I sent out press releases when the medals were made, and they appeared in the New York Times. At that time, had a coin column in the Sunday issue, and I would get hundreds of orders. So that's how we built it up, the medals. And I had the foresight to make plaques while I was making the medals. So I made the plaques. The plaques were put up on exhibit at the Magnes Museum in Berkeley, California. And so the plaques then moved around a bit until they found a home in Richmond, Virginia. And I want to say the original thinking about why would the Jewish American Hall of Fame be in a Holocaust museum was that this was an indication of what talent was extinguished by the Nazis, and what those people could have, those 6 million people could have accomplished in medicine and science and every other endeavor, just as these Americans have done. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for carrying that tradition forward and sharing it with us. And thank you to Eugene for his artistry and for allowing us to experience his creative process through this presentation today. His work really captures the moral weight and human warmth of Rosenwald's partnership with Booker T. Washington. And I think it's really this moment we're in right now. This couldn't have been, more timely to have chosen this as this year's inductee. So thank you. Continuing our program, we're honored to hear from Dorothy Cantor, founder and president of the Julius Rosenwald and Rosenwald Schools National Historic Park Campaign, who has led the national effort to secure a permanent place for Rosenwald's story in the American landscape. Dorothy, we're delighted to have you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Jewish American Hall of Fame to include me in this induction ceremony today. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got involved with Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington and the nearly 5,000 African-American communities in the South. It was September of 2015, and my husband and I were looking for a movie to see, and we couldn't agree on any movie. And so we were about to just give it up and stay home when I saw in the Washington Post weekend magazine a brief, very short review of a new documentary called Rosenwald by a local documentarian, Aviva Kempner. And I turned to my husband, Jerry, and I said, "Have you ever heard of Julius Rosenwald?" He said, "No." And I said, "Well, neither have I." And I said, "Well, did you know that he helped make Sears Roebuck the retailing powerhouse of the 20th century?" Neither of us knew anything about this. And so we decided on chance. I guess it was really serendipity or fate. And we went to see the documentary, 90-minute documentary. And we were both very inspired. And at the end of the documentary, I looked at Jerry and I said, there needs to be a national park to commemorate Julius Rosenwald and the Rosenwald schools. And so here I am, somebody who had never heard of Julius Rosenwald until that very day. And I'm saying, let's go build a national park, create a national park. So I didn't know Julius Rosenwald, but I knew an awful lot about national parks because I had served on the board of the National Parks Conservation Association for 9 years, and I continued on, whether they liked it or not, as a volunteer, and I still am a volunteer. So that's how my personal journey began with Julius Rosenwald. It's been a transformative journey, and I still learn new things every day. And I want to say, Mel, you're right. There were 4,978 schools built between 1913 and 1937. The last one was after the school program stopped, But President Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted a school built in Warm Springs, Georgia, where he went all the time for his polio. And he came to the Julius Rosenwald Fund, which was still in existence, and asked them to support it. So it was 4,977 when the program ended, and 4,978 total. So let me talk a little bit. You've heard about Julius Rosenwald, Booker T. Washington. Let me give you some of the story about the two men and the schools. They're two very different men, very different backgrounds, but they came together and formed a very unique partnership and game-changing partnership. Julius Rosenwald was born in Springfield, Illinois in 1862, the son of German Jewish immigrants who migrated to the U.S. to escape persecution in Germany and to lead a better life. He grew up in Springfield. As a matter of fact, his home was across the street from Abraham Lincoln's home, and it is now part of a national park, the Lincoln Home National Historic Site. Of course, he never saw Lincoln because he was born in 1862, and Lincoln came back in a casket. Rosenwald was a high school dropout. He left school early to go to New York to learn the clothing trade from his uncles there. And he ended up in Chicago selling men's suits, manufacturing and selling men's suits. And he was leading a very nice life, but he was by no means wealthy. And he got an amazing opportunity by chance to buy into a quarter interest into a new catalog company, Sears, Roebuck and Company, that was struggling. They were struggling because Richard Sears was an amazing marketer, but he didn't know how to run a business. And so Julius Rosenwald, beyond his wildest dreams, became extraordinarily wealthy. He was a great manager for Sears, and he embarked on a very important, transformative philanthropy. The other man, Booker T. Washington, was born enslaved in 1856. He yearned for an education, and he basically walked across Virginia to get that education. He became highly educated, and not only that, he founded Tuskegee Institute, which is now Tuskegee University, and he was the principal of it for the rest of his life. These two men came together in 1911 when Washington came to Chicago looking for a new member for the Tuskegee board. And by the way, Washington was an amazing fundraiser. I mean, he was just terrific. He should be studied. And he invited Rosenwald to join the board of Tuskegee, which Rosenwald did in early 1912. And on August 12th, 1912, Rosenwald turned 50. And he didn't throw a big gala. He didn't, throw money around. He gave away a lot of money to a number of organizations in honor of that birthday, one of which was Tuskegee. And Washington, very shortly thereafter, they gave $25,000, which today is probably like $500,000, maybe even more. And Washington came and asked him if he would be willing to put $2,800 of that amount toward building 6 schools in the rural areas near Tuskegee. And Rosenwald agreed, and they agreed that it would be, that the communities would have to contribute to that, to $300 to each school. And the $300 could be made up from actual money, land, labor, materials, or a combination thereof. And so the 6 schools were built. The people in the communities who yearned for education, just like Washington, because they realized that something that was forbidden them when they were enslaved had to be important. And the schools were quickly built, and Rosenwald picked up the vision and the passion that Washington had for the schools. And in 1914, he committed $30,000 to build up to 100 more schools. Unfortunately, in November of 1915, Washington died. He had hypertension, and there was no treatment for it thereafter. But as I said, Rosenwald caught in the dream of Washington, and he continued the program as you know, until 1932. In 1920, at the time that Booker T. Washington died, there were about 30 schools built or under construction. Excuse me. In 1920, Rosenwald put the program in Nashville and under his own foundation, the Rosenwald Fund. And between 1920 and 1928, over 400 schools a year were built through the program. But not only that, excuse me, they also started a library services program that distributed books for elementary school children and secondary school children, students, first only to Rosenwald schools, then to all Black schools that were interested, and ultimately also to white schools. They also started a busing school program for Rosenwald schools because toward the end, they were building bigger schools, some in urban locations as well. And the Rosenwald Fund provided funding to teach teachers, students who became teachers, to teach in the schools. So it was a very game-changing, all-encompassing program. As I said, it ended in 1932, but the library services program and the other programs continued thereafter. As Mel said, there were 5,358, if you count the Eleanor Roosevelt School, that were built between 1913 and 1938. So it was an amazing, remarkable story, and it made changes to the United States to make it more democratic, more equitable. And some of the luminaries among the Rosenwald School graduates were Congressman John Lewis, Maya Angelou, Medgar Evers, the singer Nina Simone. Beyond that, there were many people who were not famous, but who were educated and became part of the civil rights movement and brought about real change in the 60s. So that's a remarkable story. It needs to be preserved. And there's more to it. And I'll be very brief because Rosenwald also had a fellowship program, and it awarded fellowships in many different fields, the arts, medicine, science, sociology, you name it, to over 900 mainly young people, mainly at the start of their careers. 2/3 of them were African Americans. And these people went on to show that given equal opportunity, anybody can achieve anything as long as they have the opportunity and ability. It's not a question of race. It's not a question of religion. It's not a question of gender. And so some of the famous people among the fellows were Marian Anderson. She got to go to Germany where she studied voice and became a star there, and then came back to the US to be a star. Ralph Bunche, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, the painter Jacob Lawrence. I could go on, including the singer and activist Woody Guthrie was one of the white awardees. Rosenwald also gave in Chicago. He was the founding donor for the Museum of Science and Industry. He refused to let his name be put on the building. And he gave to Jewish causes, and he also supported Jane Addams' Hull House. So he was into social justice. He embodied the two pillars of Judaism. One, it's tzedakah, social justice, and the other being tikkun olam, repairing the world. And so when he died in 1932, on January 6, 1932, it was front page news in the New York Times, in the Chicago paper, in New Orleans, Detroit, etc. But because he believed in give while you live, that each philanthropist should deal with the problems of that generation and not put money into funds that go on forever, permanent endowments, over time, his name faded away until 2015, when Aviva Kempner came out with her documentary. And even now, he's not well known, but thanks to the Jewish American Hall of Fame and to other things, he is becoming more known, as are the Rosenwald schools and what they accomplished. So that's the story. That's what changed my life. And now I'll give you a little, very brief background and about the campaign to create the Julius Rosenwald and Rosenwald Schools National Historical Park. The documentary was in 2015. In 2016, I met with representatives of the National Parks Conservation Association, with which I was been in long contact, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and we plotted a plan forward. The campaign got started later in 2016. We formed a board. In 2017, we contacted the state historic preservation officers in the 15 states in which the schools were built, and we asked for recommendations of schools that would be candidates for the park. And all 15 of the state officers responded. Only four schools were built in, school facilities were built in Missouri, and they did not have any nominations, although they responded. There were 55 schools and one teacher home that were recommended for inclusion in the park. And in 2018 and 19, campaign representatives visited 33 schools and the teacher home. We had intended to visit more, but as we all know, 2020 came with the bad news of the pandemic. In 2020, Congress passed legislation to direct the National Park Service to do a special resource study of the sites that are associated with Julius Rosenwald and the Rosenwald schools. And that legislation was signed into law by President Trump on January 13, 2021. And that special resource study was completed, and the report was submitted to Congress in June of 2024. Legislation was introduced in September 2024 to create the national park, but that legislation, just like all other legislation dealing with national parks and natural resources lands, did not make it through Congress at the end of the session last year. We are working on new legislation that we expect will be introduced this year, and with luck, we will get bipartisan support, and we seek support wherever we can get it. We are also doing two other things that are quite meaningful. We're working right now on an online geospatial map and database on the schools that still exist, which are, we believe, about 500 to 600. That'll include all kinds of information on the schools, historical, current, location, photos, links to other websites, etc., ability to look at how many schools are in a 50-mile radius or 10-mile radius. And we also just learned that a major foundation is going to give us a grant to create an informal network of Rosenwald schools. And in typical fashion, I forgot something. I always forget something when I give these talks. The mission of the campaign, as I said, is to create a national historical park. And what is that park going to consist of? It's going to be a park that has multiple sites. There will be a visitor center to be determined and to be built in Chicago, where Rosenwald lived and did his philanthropy, and a small number of Rosenwald schools. We're looking at 3 right now, and a formal network of Rosenwald schools, which are not within the park, but will be associated with the park. So this network, that informal that we're working on, we believe will feed into the ultimate formal network once the park is created and built. I just want to again say that this is really a remarkable story of what people of different backgrounds and cultures can do when they come together, work together, and partner. And it deserves to be preserved. It deserves to be told. Julius Rosenwald and the partnership of Julius Rosenwald with Booker T. Washington and the schools, the communities who dug so deep to advance their children, is a really powerful story, to be celebrated for the 250th anniversary of our nation. And so I want to thank, again, the Jewish American Hall of Fame. I also want to thank Jerry Klinger, who's going to be speaking. And Jerry, I've gotten to know through the campaign. Jerry goes around and erects historical markers on all sorts of themes that deal with Jewish lives. And one of those themes, and he's created a number of historical markers, has to do with Rosenwald schools. So thank you all. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for helping to preserve this powerful, meaningful story, especially for this time.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. That was just really incredible. You know, as inspiring as Rosenwald's story is itself, I'm inspired by your story, how you just went out and did it and took it upon yourself to create this campaign and preserve this legacy for future generations. I think is really just so inspiring. And I learned so much listening to you speak today. And I really hope that all of your efforts come to fruition very soon, because I think that so many people can continue to benefit from learning about this story. So thank you. I really appreciate your contributions today. And again, I'm so inspired by what you shared. There's a film produced by the Park Campaign that I'll put in the chat here that folks can watch to learn more and to really deepen your understanding of this remarkable legacy. So thank you. And just to shed light on how I first encountered Rosenwald, since we had spoken about that earlier, where I grew up, there were actually a number of Sears Roebuck homes, which was something that sparked my interest because they seemed rather unimpressive, and I wasn't sure why they were being celebrated, or might have even had a premium if they came for sale. So I Googled it years ago, and then came to learn that these were almost mail order homes that were designed for lower middle class and middle class families and affordability. And first, you know, read about Rosenwald's name in association with Sears Roebuck at that time. So it's just by chance, but it's a really fascinating history that I hope many more Americans get to know. Well, wonderful. Thank you again for all that you do through the campaign, and to help us reflect further on how history is preserved and brought to life in the public square. As Dorothy mentioned, we're joined by Jerry Klinger, president and founder of the Jewish American Society for Historic Preservation. Jerry's organization has worked across the United States and even a little bit internationally, I believe, to ensure that Jewish stories and the shared stories of American diversity are visibly honored through monuments, plaques, and historic markers. His work embodies the belief that memory itself can be an act of justice. And Jerry, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Well, thank you very much. And I have to, well, thank you, Dorothy, for that plug over there. But let me just tell you, I'm probably like many people. I didn't start off thinking that I should do something. It was what I do and what I'm doing started off as an absolute accident. My wife and I were in Columbia, California. We were doing, you know, the bed and breakfast routine, and there wasn't much to do. And I happened to see a light down the street, and it was a bookstore. So I went in there and I discovered Helen Rokeland's book about pioneer Jews. Now, I was a product of a yeshiva. And in the yeshiva world that I grew up in, Jewish history ended with the destruction of the Second Temple, began with the birth of Israel, and there was nothing in the middle. So I didn't know anything about this stuff. But the next year, my poor suffering wife was with me again. We were in Santa Fe, again, the B&B routine. And I said to her, you know, just over those hills yonder is the first permanent Jewish house of worship in the territory of New Mexico. Well, you know, in the West, just over those hills means about 60 miles or more of driving just to get there. And I went out there too, and I'm standing in front of the location of this very pretty little white Catholic church. And I was saying, I got to be in the wrong place. So I went inside to in the city center rather, to the tourist office, and I'm asking about Jews. And they kind of looked at me and said, Jews? And I said about the building. He said, oh, yeah. That was the synagogue. And I went, really? I said, I wonder if I can put up a marker at the site that would say this was the first permanent Jewish house of worship in the territory of New Mexico, Temple Montefiore. Well, I managed to do that. And then before I knew it, we had an entire program. The Jewish Historical Society of New Mexico was brought in. We had people from as far away as France came in when we did the dedications. The Jewish community was reborn. And then I asked myself, I wonder if I can do this anywhere else. And then it continued. So since then, I've completed projects in 44 states, 9 countries, and that's a rough estimate over here. We probably get about 7 million people a year who see something that we've done and learned a little bit about the American Jewish experience. Now, why was that important? It's important because anti-Semites would like to say to us, we have no legitimacy here. We have no right to be here. It was the Christians that came and cleared the community and formed the and formed the country, and then Jews came in and they took everything for themselves. And I knew that was an absolute lie, because the country is made up of many, many different types of people, many walks of life, many religions, many cultures and backgrounds. And somehow, through the American experience, we found ways to work together. I'm doing a project right now in outside of Virginia City in Nevada for the Sutro Tunnel. Actually, it's a bigger project. We're doing sculptures and putting in historic markers. And they asked me, well, why or what I would like to say about it. Well, the answer is really very simple. It goes to the experience that as we moved west, the first question was not where were you from or who you were, but what can you bring to the table together to make this a better place? So I'm always searching for new ideas. And I too, I knew nothing about Julius Rosenwald. I mean, they don't teach you about that at the yeshiva, that's for certain. And I discovered him possibly through Aviva Kempner. And I said, oh my gosh. So since then, I've been doing Julius Rosenwald markers, putting them up at the sites of locations where the buildings were or where they are. And I'm doing this, I think I've done them already in about 11 different states. And I'm always looking for more. I always have things in development. But it's to talk about the commonality of the American experience, how all of us together, for various reasons, we come together to find ways how we can become Americans together and do good to make this country a better place. And that's what the linkage between Dr. Washington and Julius Rosenwald was. Neither man was looking just for themselves. They were looking how to make this country better. They weren't saying just whites, blacks, whatever. They wanted to do it together. So that was the messaging, and that was the importance for me, and why I do so many of the Julius Rosenwald markers and projects, because it is about we, not about me, not about him, you, whatever. It is about us together making this into a more remarkable story that is continuing. And it's not saying that we don't have bumps along the road. We do. That's the way it is. But we have a remarkable system here that's resilient. And yeah, we'll take left turns, and maybe the ship will get destabilized periodically. But we have the ability of righting the ship and bringing everything back together again, where we talk about the we and how we will work together to make this a better world. So what Julius Rosenwald and Dr. Washington did, to me, was an important story that has to be remembered, not forgotten, remembered. And surprisingly, whenever I bring this to communities, many of them don't even know about it, and that's including in the Black communities. But when I talk about the we of this effort, it's amazing how many people want to sign on and want to become part of. And not asking anybody for money, we fund it all. But if there's opportunities, I'm very open, and please, I'd love to hear from you, because it's the opportunities of the we that we want to commemorate and tell for the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, for reminding us of the importance of remembering and how it can also contribute to renewal. These stories that you're helping to preserve and educate around the country really ensure that future generations can learn from those who came before us, and just just really inspired to hear that message and in the why of what we do at the Jewish American Hall of Fame. So, through Mel and I's common lineage, our ancestry in the United States goes back about 150 years, which is around the centennial of this country's birth, and it's just a reminder of that shared history and the American ideal and how we all make up this kind of pluralistic mosaic. And I really appreciated hearing that message today. So thank you. To further that message, we'll now hear from Gemma Birnbaum, who's the executive director of the American Jewish Historical Society, and she recorded a short message about Rosenwald's values and their place in the broader tradition of Jewish philanthropy, Jewish American history, and social responsibility. So bear with me 1 second, and I will share Gemma's video.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gemma Birnbaum, Executive Director of the American Jewish Historical Society here in New York City, and I'm so pleased to be learning more about Julius Rosenwald with all of you today. Rosenwald was an iconic figure in American Jewish history, and we're grateful to the Jewish American Hall of Fame for spotlighting his work, philanthropy, and impact on so many communities. In a current moment where we so often find ourselves divided, Rosenwald's life as a uniter, an advocate, and a champion for justice is an example we can all look to in our own lives. My thanks to Mel Wacks and the Jewish American Hall of Fame for being excellent partners to AJHS over the years and for highlighting the best of what American Jewish history has to offer.
Well, thank you for Gemma for sharing that message and for all the work that the American Jewish Historical Society does to educate and preserve this shared tradition. Next up, I'm really delighted to introduce our next speaker, Deja Wallerson, who serves as the African American Alliance Manager at the Combat Antisemitism Movement, where she builds bridges between Black and Jewish communities through education, dialogue, cultural exchange, and shared action. With a background in social impact, community organizing, and storytelling, Deja brings a powerful voice to advancing solidarity across lines of difference. Her work focuses on cultivating authentic relationships rooted in empathy, history, shared values, and healing. Guided by a vision of unity, she champions initiatives that illuminate the shared struggles and intertwined destinies of both African and Jewish diasporas. Deja, welcome.
Thank you, Arthur, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so deeply moved, and it's such a privilege to be with everyone today. I want to start by thanking the Jewish American Hall of Fame and Combat Antisemitism Movement and all the distinguished speakers and guests that gathered here today for this special moment and remembrance of two very great American heroes. So as the African American Alliance Manager at CAM, our mission is rooted in a simple but profound belief that anti-Semitism and hate in any form cannot be fought in isolation. We exist to unite communities across faith, races, and backgrounds in shared work of dignity, understanding, and a moral courage. And that's exactly the legacy that we're here to celebrate today. The story of Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington is one of the great American examples of what can happen when two leaders from one of Jewish background and one of African American background can choose faith over fear and partnership over division. And I'd like to expand on the character of these two visionary leaders. So Julius Rosenwald, as we've heard, has been rising from modest beginnings to become the president of Sears Roebuck Company, and was a man who was measured by success, not by profit, but by purpose. And he was a testament to the Jewish value, as Dorothy suggested, that tikkun olam and repairing the world, that belief, that wealth that should serve humanity was highly important to him. And Booker T. Washington, one of the most visionary educators of his time, dedicated his life to proving that education could be both a path to empowerment and an act of liberation. So despite coming from two very different worlds of race and faith and circumstance, They recognized in each other the same conviction that education and self-determination are the foundation of justice. And their partnership, as we've heard, have given birth to about 5,000 Rosenwald schools and more, shared by Dorothy, of one of the most transformational educational moments in American history. So these schools were more than structures. They were symbols of hope. And they stood as proof when communities come together, even in the face of injustice, they can create spaces for learning, pride, and liberation. And as a Black woman and a mother raising a young son in America, I feel this legacy deeply. And my own education and my child's future are part of the ripple effects of what these two men were able to imagine and actualize to life. They believed in the transformative power of learning, and their vision still teaches us to this day that the seeds of freedom can begin by expanding minds and resources in the classroom. But also their friendship teaches us that more urgent in the time now than ever before, the Black-Jewish partnership is not just history. It is a living blueprint for how we heal a divided world. Their collaboration reminds us that the fight against antisemitism and the fight against anti-Black racism are bound together by shared moral truth, compassion, and the courage to do what is right. So at CAM, we proudly carry that torch forward through our annual Washington Rosenwald HBCU Scholarship Program, where we offer a creative contest honoring the enduring Black-Jewish partnership. And each spring, students from historically Black colleges and universities submit essays, art, and digital projects exploring unity, education, and justice to expand this awareness and create action between these two communities. And the winners receive scholarships to support their studies, and more importantly, they become the next generation of bridge builders within this sacred legacy. So in this way, we keep the Rosenwald Washington vision alive, not as nostalgia, but as an active commitment, because their story is not just about the schools, it's about the moral courage and the character. It's about seeing one another fully, investing in one another's humanity, and building together even when the world tells us we cannot support one another. So as we honor Julius Rosenwald today, we honor the bridge he built with Booker T. Washington, and we honor that building not of bricks and boards, but a vision of empathy and shared responsibility. So on behalf of CAM, we celebrate this moment and congratulate Julius Rosenwald and the Rosenwald legacy, and may we continue to walk across that bridge together towards a future not defined by fear or division, but by understanding, solidarity, and love in action. Thank you for having us.
Wow. Thank you, Deja. That was a really meaningful reflection on the spirit of Rosenwald's work and how it endures through shared action and mutual understanding, and in the work that you're doing today and the work that CAM is doing today, especially with the Rosenwald contest with HBCUs. It's really, it's all part of this story and this work that each member of our panel today is doing to create a better future for our children. And it's really inspiring to hear you share and to hear your perspective today. So thank you for being here, and thank you for CAM for its longtime partnership in the virtual annual induction ceremony for the Jewish American Hall of Fame. So thank you. We now turn to a really special pre-recorded message from Kenneth B. Morris Jr., who is the co-founder and president of the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives, a nonprofit based in Rochester, New York, whose mission is to build strong children and to end systems of exploitation and oppression. Ken is the great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass and the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington. And he has dedicated his life to carrying forward their legacies of education, human rights, and moral leadership. In this short video, Ken reflects on how Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington's partnership continues to inspire today's movements for opportunity and empowerment. Oops.
Hello, I'm Kenneth B. Morris Jr., the
Oops.
Hello.
Sorry, 1 second.
Hello, I'm Kenneth B. Morris Jr., the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington and the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass. It's an honor to share a few words as we celebrate the induction of Julius Rosenwald into the Jewish American Hall of Fame. I want to thank the organizers for including my ancestor, Booker T. Washington, on the plaque that will hang in the Virginia Holocaust Museum, a fitting tribute to moral courage, partnership, and shared purpose. As you may already know, Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald met in Chicago in 1911 during a YMCA-related event where Washington was speaking and Rosenwald was in attendance. Rosenwald had already read Washington's autobiography, Up From Slavery, and had been moved by his life story and philosophy of self-help and education. Hearing Washington in person strengthened that admiration, and the two men soon formed a friendship that would help change the course of American education forever. Washington was born enslaved in 1856, and from those beginnings, he rose to become one of the most influential educators and institution builders in the nation, transforming Tuskegee Institute into a world-renowned center of learning, industry, and moral development. His guiding belief was that education and character were the twin pillars of freedom, that through skill, discipline, and cooperation, formerly enslaved people and their descendants could claim their rightful place as full citizens. Rosenwald recognized the power of that vision and chose to invest in it. Their collaboration led to the creation of more than 5,000 schools across the rural South between 1912 and 1937. Institutions widely known today as the Rosenwald schools, but originally envisioned and guided by Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee. Nearly 700,000 Black children were educated in those classrooms. Each one of those schools stood as a declaration of faith in the human spirit. They're often referred to simply as the Rosenwald schools, but the Washington family and others I've talked with who care deeply about this history prefer to call them the Washington Rosenwald schools. Not because anyone intends to diminish my great-great-grandfather's role, but because the words we use matter. They shape how history is remembered and whose contributions are recognized. Booker T. Washington conceived this idea, built its foundation through Tuskegee, and invited Julius Rosenwald into a partnership that changed the American South. To call them the Washington Rosenwald schools honors that shared legacy as it truly began, with vision and generosity working hand in hand. While Rosenwald's philanthropy made much of it possible, the foundation of that movement was Booker T. Washington's philosophy, his insistence on community participation, local ownership, and dignity through shared responsibility. He believed that true progress couldn't be given, it had to be built together. That belief became the blueprint for the Washington Rosenwald schools, where neighbors contributed land, labor, and small sums of money to match Rosenwald's grants. As a descendant of Booker T. Washington, I'm proud of how that partnership embodied his life's mission. My ancestor often said that the measure of a man's greatness is not in what he achieves for himself, but in what he enables others to achieve. Through these schools, he and Julius Rosenwald enabled generations of Black children who had been denied equal access to a quality education, to read, to write, to dream, and to lead. When I visit the restored Washington Rosenwald schools today, I think of the children who walked miles just to sit at a desk, the teachers who taught by lamplight, and the communities that refused to surrender to hopelessness. Those modest buildings, simple, sun-filled, built by hand, became the seabeds of Black excellence and empowerment throughout the South. Their partnership offers a powerful lesson for our time. It reminds us that lasting progress depends on empathy, vision, and courage, the willingness to see our shared humanity and work side by side for the common good. On behalf of the Washington family, I want to express my gratitude for this recognition of Julius Rosenwald's extraordinary legacy and for honoring his enduring friendship with my great-great-grandfather. Their story reminds us that the truest monuments are not carved in stone or bronze, but built in the lives we touch and the communities we strengthen. May their example continue to inspire all of us to educate, to serve, and to believe in the power of partnership to redeem the promise of America. Thank you.
Wow, that was really an inspiring message, and the spirit of what Ken shared, and in the spirit of renewal and the Black-Jewish partnership, we should be referring to the Washington Rosenwald schools and their joint partnerships. So thank you to Ken for those inspiring words, linking past to present through your own family's legacy. And as the father of a daughter who now represents the 6th generation of my family in the United States, I'm deeply moved by hearing these legacies of those who came before us in order to create that better shared future. So their courage and conviction remind us of our own responsibility to help ensure that our children's future is brighter, fairer, and more united than what we are seeing today. As we conclude today's ceremony, I wanted to extend our gratitude to all of our speakers and partners. Thank you, Jerry, Dorothy, Deja, Sam, Gemma, and Ken for joining Mel and I in conversation today. It was really wonderful to have all of you to take times out of your Sundays to join and share these really powerful stories, and to really contribute to the record and the archival material that we are producing to share these stories with future generations and with our children today. Julius Rosenwald showed that the true measure of success is not what we accumulate, but what we help others to achieve. And his partnership with Booker T. Washington stands as one of the great acts of moral imagination in American history. On behalf of Mel Wacks and myself and the Jewish American Hall of Fame and the American Jewish Historical Society, thank you for joining us to celebrate this enduring story of vision, generosity, and humanity. And thank you again to the Combat Anti-Semitism movement for their partnership in this year's induction and for the last 5 years, and to the Virginia Holocaust Museum for being the Hall of Fame's permanent exhibit. A recording of today's event will be available on the American Jewish Historical Society YouTube page shortly, and we can also share it with our panelists and our co-sponsors as well to share on their channels. And for more information on acquiring the limited edition Rosenwald Washington commemorative medal, please reach out to the Jewish Hall of Fame and we can help you secure one. So thank you all and have a wonderful afternoon.